Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching around the world. Welcome back to Fantasy Focus, our second episode here at PGC 2023. As the grand finals approach, I've gathered our best fantasy experts to tell you a little bit more about who to pick and maybe who to avoid. My name's Toffees. I'm joined by Paper Thin. The name is Toby and Porosaurus to break down all your fantasy information for PGC 2023's grand final. All right, let's start out, Toby. As our reigning champion so far, how have you enjoyed the event so far?
It's been good. It's first time for everything, I suppose, and fun to be in the top.
I like that. A little bit of, keep it low key because your performance has been absolutely insane, and it hurts me to say that. Now, Porosaurus, I got to ask you, what player have you been the most impressed with when it comes to fantasy so far?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer is Sol, but, he's sitting at the top. I think we were all expecting him to do really well coming into this. The one that's really impressed me, and I think that's impressed our whole panel, is Fex from FaZe. I think some of us may have been expecting him to do well, but I don't know if they were expecting him to do 7.5 something points per game well in 24 games. So he's been playing out of his mind.
Let's talk about who has let us down. And I think this is a pretty interesting conversation because not a lot of us expected such big letdowns early on. Paper Thin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was probably Perfectix.
Okay.
Up until the very last day of the last chance qualifiers, he was struggling. The whole team was struggling, to be honest, but usually he's very consistent, at least putting up good amounts of damage. Twisted Minds is often kind of getting into late games. We're not seeing any of that happening. It just seemed like everything wasn't really coming together for them until they really needed to. Until the Sonics started hot dropping them, all of a sudden, we saw Twisted Minds come right back into form.
Boom or bust. As we look to grand finals, who's your big boom player? And who do you think has a chance of busting out? I'm gonna start with Toby. He has been dominating. He's got to go first.
I gotta go Pow Pow. I mean, we knew he had skill coming into this tournament, but still to the grand final standings, he is the player that has put up the most points compared to his price, and he continues regardless of whether you're in groups or winners, he still racks up points regardless of whether Tiamba gets circles or not. He's always up there dealing damage, so just a guaranteed, I should say, pick for grand finals team.
Who's your bust?
As much as I was on the Shen and Tai Lu wagon throughout the previous PGS events, he just hasn't lived up to it this time around. And coming into the grand finals, I have my worries. Yes, he might have one or two good games, but the pop-off Shen that we've seen in the past, the pop-off Shen that now kind of puts him at the price that he is at, I don't think he's going to live up to it.
All right, fair enough. Poro, who's your boom?
Who is my boom, you ask? My boom is Fex. And mostly for all the reasons we talked about at the beginning of the show, right? Is the fact that he's putting up an insane amount of points per game, regardless of how FaZe does and regardless of what lobby it's been in. Both lobbies that they've played in, he's still managed to put up just a crazy amount of numbers. Now, the only thing I'm a little bit worried about is that they didn't really have the wins to go along with the good numbers. So that might be something that keeps me from picking him for my main roster.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Okay. Bust?
It's going to be PO.
Gotta be PO.
It's going to be PO. Everybody was kind of expecting them to do mid coming into this. I don't think anybody was really expecting PO and Gen G to come in here and light the world on fire. And they delivered exactly that during group phases. Now, they had found their footing a little bit during the bracket stage, but it wasn't enough to justify paying, 20,000 plus for a guy that may or may not go off.
You think it's a bit of a trap?
It's a trap. You see the name PO, you think PUBG royalty, the god. It's been a long time since those days, man.
Fair. All right, now, Paper, I couldn't help but notice you reacted when Poro said PO. Is he on your list, and which side?
He is. He is the same bust for me
Okay.
as PO. I mean, unfortunately, I think his style of play, which is very much early game isolated maneuvers where he's trying to identify maybe weaknesses in other teams and punish that.
That makes sense.
It hasn't really been working this event. I think because teams are so spread out this event in terms of they're further out on the edge, usually PO is looking to go deeper into the center to find isolated players, not out on the edges. So a lot of times what I'm seeing is Gen G's actually the ones getting kind of picked apart on their edges instead, and then they're not able to recover. So I think their play style just isn't really suiting it, on top of maybe PO not having his best event.
Okay, so he's your bust. Tell me, who are you looking at to get you back in this thing?
I'm actually going to go with Tiggleton. I think with the Sonics, it's been a little bit up and down for them, but with the way that they absolutely dominated the last chance qualifiers, Tiggleton is a player who usually shows up in big game moments. I really think that him and the Sonics are going to have a great performance. He really started to come alive there in the last chance qualifier. I started to see that incredible form, especially with the ARs, especially with the AUG that we're used to seeing from him. across so many different events.
All right. I like that. And I got to sort of agree with you on the Sonics thing, I think is important. So I'm going to go my boom player, PGS2. Sonics looked so good. I think they continue rolling forward. But I think Kickstart, the newest member of the team, he was slow at the start of this event to kind of get the system together. But in that sort of last chance qualifier, we saw him find his feet. And I think you're going to get a good price for a solid performance. Will he change the world and light on fire? Probably not. But for the price he's coming at, I think it's a strong pick for your team. My bust player is Iceleft. I just think Petrichor is going to struggle in this lobby. I think Iceleft is deeply overpriced because of the traverse through the loser's bracket, the last chance qualifier. He's got a lot of kills and damage against inferior skill levels, and I think that that's not going to reflect well in the winner's bracket. PGC 2023, this is it, the biggest show in the world. Dreams come true or get broken here. What are you excited about?
Oh man, I mean, it's just the grand finals, 18 games of the best teams in the world, another super stacked lobby. It's hard to imagine that this isn't going to be just one of the best finishes we've ever had. It seems like most of the stages have been extremely close, coming right down to the wire.
I don't think there's anything more to say than that. It's almost time for PGC 2023's grand finals. Don't forget to sign up so you too can play fantasy over at twire.gg.